Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio today here in Nashville, Tennessee, we're actually in Treasure Isle Recorders here in Nashville, Tennessee, with a buddy of mine I've known for a long time. Seems to be that way. Joe Carrell's with us here in the studio. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for letting us do this in your studio. This is one of the premier studios. It's been around for a long time.
It has. To my understanding, it opened in 1981, and at the time it was... because of its size, it's a very large facility, and it was, new and shiny at the time. And then they were also the first studio that had original 3M digital multi-track. So it was like 32 tracks on a 1-inch tape. And, every artist thought that's what they had to have at the time. So you're talking about like Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton and Waylon Jennings and James Taylor and just on recorded here at that time because it was kind of the in spot. So yeah, quite a history. And then of course today we still have like Jason Aldean coming through, and
he records all of his albums.
Everything
here, right?
He's ever done was here. Yeah. His producer is actually working here tomorrow on a new Broken Bow act. Maybe I shouldn't even say their name or whatever. But so yeah, it's just sonically, it's an amazing room. Yeah, drums, the strings, and brass just sound incredible in there.
And we're in Studio B today, I guess.
We are in Studio B. This is kind of my everyday domain. I kind of moved in here probably around 15 months ago or so and set up my camp in here. So it's all my gear and my Pro Tools system and everything. So this is kind of my mixing and overdub home, hub. If I'm not tracking, I don't need the kind of square footage that we have over there, so it's a kind of a waste of, budgets, really to rent out a big room if it's just me and a computer.
When you and I first met, it was up in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Yes.
You were at Inlight Recorders, Rick Lloyd's place.
Yeah.
It took some time to really find a home like this for you. You moving around from studio to studio for a while.
I did.
Because the whole studio scene has changed. I think that was part of the reason, wasn't it?
Yeah, I went from like most of us do, you start off, assisting reputable guys or actually being a house guy at a studio. So you spend all your time in commercial spaces. Really remember, but a handful of years in the business, everything started moving home, because Pro Tools became kind of the de facto standard of the industry. So it allowed people to work in their pajamas and their, and their den. And I followed that trend and moved home for about 6 years. I mean, it was, a walkout basement, with a separate entrance. And, it was a nice place, but it's still in your home.
Yeah.
So after about 6 years, I started missing kind of everything that's great about being in a commercial space. And that's like the people and it's like, hey, I'm not at home, I'm at work kind of thing. You have stop-in guests. I've had James Taylor walked into my control room one day. I mean, that don't happen at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been back out, for maybe the last 6 years or so of my career in commercial spaces and moved around several times. It's hard to find an everyday home where you can just lock out long term. So, but this has been great.
From a studio standpoint, Music Row, we've talked about this several times on the show. Mm-hmm. It's not what it used to be. It's transitioned a lot, and it's gone away from being the home for a lot of record labels and recording studios to now it's more residential condos, office space, things like that.
Yeah.
The studios have, what I can see, they've kind of migrated to Berry Hill, where we're at today, or they've migrated to other areas of Nashville. Question is, the commercial studio, and I had this conversation a while back with another engineer, is the commercial studio still viable in comparison to the home studio?
I think it is. I mean, our neighbors, we're right next door to Blackbird, for example. Their parking lots are overflowing every day. First of all, it's a couple things. Even though sales, we all know, are way, way down, there's more music than ever being generated. Now, granted, some of that is from bedroom studios and things like that. But when it comes to strings, when it comes to brass, when it comes to real drums, which almost every, that many genres, I would even say most genres, that's the fact outside of some of the programming pop. You need to move air. Yeah. There's a lot of people that try to do it at home, and it just doesn't sound like what we can do like here or at Omni or Blackbird, House of Blues, some of the bigger rooms in town where you can really move a lot of air, and you're in rooms that are designed for that purpose. Drums and trumpets and things like that just really want to speak. They want to be at a distance from the walls that they're near.
And it's not just square footage, it's cubic footage. You really need those high ceilings too.
Yeah, you need absolutely.
And acoustics.
There's just a thing about not going to someone's house. People are coming to an actual studio and hanging out. The way we do it in Nashville, I know a lot of other towns are different, but we still record mostly everybody at one time. Like tomorrow, there'll be drums, there'll be bass, there'll be 2 electric players, a steel guitar, as well as a keyboard player and a scratch vocalist, all happening at one time. You need a lot of space, a lot of parking. It's
and you need a big enough room to put all those players in there to where it's not bleeding all over each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not worried about the state of the commercial studio business. I think it's still extremely viable. Now, the thing is, used to they did all their work here. Now it's like we're going to record the raw track, the big rhythm section here or wherever, and then they're going to take it to a smaller studio to do the vocals, to do the background vocals, the mixing, stuff like that. That stuff isn't done in the big rooms anymore. But because more music is being done than ever, there's enough of those initial tracking dates or brass and string overdubs to keep rooms hopping.
When you go from a big room such as Studio A here at Treasure Isle, and you go to a smaller studio to really do those overdubs, maybe the master vocals, whatever accents or additions you're going to include, is it important to really match those rooms together, or is the technology of audio recording going to allow you to make up the difference, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it's totally fine to go somewhere else. The biggest problem that I run into, because, a huge part of my career is mixing. So like products, the record has already been recorded, then it comes to me to try to make it sound like it, belongs on the radio.
Right.
Is maybe the initial tracks sound amazing because they're in a room like this or whatever, but then they do their vocals or background vocals or something else in a much smaller room to save some money, but they do it in a room that's not acoustically treated properly. So maybe they have a nice microphone, maybe they have a nice preamplifier, but like you can hear something I'm mixing right now that I'm fighting is you can hear that the sheetrock, the drywall, it can't be more than 2 feet from where the guy's singing. And of course, all that sound is echoing, reflecting back into the microphone while he's singing. And it's just causing me a horrible, horrible time, because like 2 of the 3 singers were recorded in a proper room and the one wasn't. When he has his solo lines from the other people, you go from pro, all of a sudden, like, what happened? Yeah. You just can't, once a signal is ruined, it's ruined.
It's almost like amateur hour at that point, and that makes your job a lot tougher.
Oh, gosh,
Does it almost make sense to say to that client, maybe you just need to go back and re-record, or
yeah, when it gets bad enough, I have to. Now it's my job to bring it to the producer's attention. Very first mix on this album, for example, that I sent out, I let him know, it's like, hey, I'm really battling this one guy's vocal, and this is what I can do. Hopefully it's good. If not, we'll go from there, kind of thing.
But when you go from treated walls, such as the room we're in now, to where, like you said, you go to concrete or sheetrock, there's not a whole lot you can do to fix it.
No. Once it's in the signal, it's there forever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Plus, you run into, most of the time when you're working in studios like this, you're dealing with people that's been in the business a long time. They're at the top of their game, so they understand gain structure and things. And then sometimes they go to home studios, and they're dealing with engineers that it's a hobby or a part-time, or they don't really understand gain structure, and you get vocals back and they're clipped and distorted. If they're clipped and distorted at that stage, see, they're just going to get worse when it comes to me, because after I do all my the compression and things that we do to make it sound big and consistent and in your face, every little flaw just gets magnified.
Right.
So maybe their ears weren't trained enough to kind of hear the circuit, overloading. By the time I'm getting, done with it, they're they're gonna hear it, what'd you do? I just magnified your flaws.
And it also comes down to not just the quantity of gear that's in the studio, but the quality of the gear.
Oh, yeah.
It really does make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
We're walking around the NAMM show a couple of weeks ago, and you and I were there on the same day, and it's just almost kind of like sensory overload with all the new audio product lines that are coming out from the studio. That's kind of a battle, too, picking and choosing what works best for the environment.
Yeah.
Is the old gear, because you and I are both from the analog world, is the old analog world, is that geared? It still separates what they're creating today from a sound perspective.
For me, it's still most of the best available. Whether we're talking about an actual microphone that is from 1950-something or 60-something, or a compressor, or it's a current recreation of it, they become classics for a reason, like a Stingray or a Mustang or whatever. It's just like the best that ever was, so I can use circuits like, if any engineers are listening, I can make a record with an LA2A, LA3A, and 1176 being my only compressors on the record. I don't need anything else if I have, and that technology has been around since the 60s,
right.
Same with microphones. You give me microphones from the, 50s, 60s, 70s era or modern recreations of that, and I'm good. I'm ready to go. Because of technology, there are new things that come out from time to time that we decide we can't live without and become new standards or new classics, if that's what you want to call it. And also, I got to say, for what I do, because I need a lot of channels, some of these current recreations, because of the manufacturing tolerances are better now than they were in the 50s.
Right.
They can put out recreations of those classics now that are equal to or even better because of lower noise floor or higher output or something like that for a lot cheaper. That's pretty cool. Technology is really putting us in a cool spot where we can have the sound of a, U47 or some incredible mic that if you go out and buy an original is going to cost you anywhere from $12,000 to $30,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you can buy, recreations of that stuff for like $1,000 that are killer.
It really emulates it.
Yeah. With lower, with better specs as far as like self-induced noise and things like that. So that's pretty. There's some really cool things about where we are. That's for sure. And the software. That's some of the plug-in software that we have, inside of Pro Tools now, as far as EQs and compressors and reverbs and all that kind of thing. Or, you just almost can't live without some of that stuff nowadays. So it's a pretty good time to be in engineer land.
Person in the studio.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to take a break, get a word in for our sponsor. When we come back, I want to talk about the perils and the pitfalls of coming into a studio and recording, and really what, especially the new artist that hasn't maybe spent a lot of time in the studio or has worked in home studios and now is working in this professional level of environment, what they should be looking for.
Okay.
In the studio with us today, Joe Carrell, master engineer, all-around great guy here at Treasure Isle Recorders, Nashville, Tennessee. And you're listening to this edition of...
Hey, everybody. This is John Schneider, and you are listening to my good buddy Bob Bender right here on the business side of music. Why wouldn't you be? You're smart.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hey, it's Chris SD from Sync Songwriter. Imagine what it would be like getting your music into the latest TV shows, movies, or ads. Your songs would not only get exposure in front of millions of viewers, you'd get paid to do it and gain a reputation as the songwriter that you are. I've been showing songwriters, composers, and artists how to get their music into TV and film for over 15 years. Collectively, they have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars from licensing their music. Their music has been on networks such as HBO, Bravo, ABC, NBC, Netflix, and more. In films or trailers such as Predator, Annihilation, Christmas Chronicles, Professor Mac, and many others. So many songwriters upload their music to websites hoping to get discovered. Unfortunately, this almost never happens with the millions of songs out there competing for attention. I show you how to get your music heard by the people who can actually make it happen for you. When you start getting your music licensed, you automatically develop a reputation in the industry. This lets you get syncs over and over again. If you'd like to discover how to connect with the right people in music licensing, just click the Sync Songwriter logo on the Business Side of Music webpage, and I'll see you there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
We're back in the studio. Joe Carrell has joined us today here at Treasure Isle Recorders, Nashville, Tennessee. I love the studio. I've been here, 3-4 times now. It's just got such a really cool vibe to it. I feel like I'm in your living room, but it's got all this really cool gear inside.
Yeah, my
of it.
dream living room. Yeah. If we could find a woman that would let us park a big old 80 channel SSL in our living room, that merrier.
Well, either that or get a 65-inch big screen and a taco truck parked outside.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Life can be good.
Yeah.
Life can be good.
You just have to plan. Talking about recording studios, getting in there, a lot of artists, Jason Aldean, for example, this is his home. This is where he comes and records all the time. You said James Taylor came in here, has done some work in the past along with Waylon Jennings and John Denver and Johnny Cash and a lot of great names. But then you have the new artist who's really ready to step it up. They've been working in their home studio or in a buddy's garage. Now it's time to come into, for the lack of better terms, come into the big leagues and work in these studios. When you're shopping for a studio, whether it's Treasure Isle Recorders or it's one of the many others around the country, what should you be looking for? I would think, what I just said earlier here, the comfort of the room, I think, is something you should take into consideration. Is a place that you feel good in just walking into.
Right. If you're going to work somewhere for multiple days, like if you're going to do your vocals there and stuff, definitely want it to be comfortable. You want to feel kind of like you're at home, kick off your shoes, and you're going to be there a while.
You're going to want to kick off your shoes.
Yeah. You are. So yeah, that's important. Just a little lounge space that's comfortable, and something that's big for me because I've worked in so many rooms in my career is being kind of close to things. Like I've been in studios that's out in the boonies, and the studio's been great, but it's like, man, I would just kind of like to get out of here and get a milkshake for a minute. But yeah, okay, for a 20-minute drive each direction, so it's like an hour and a half of your day is gone just to get, some just trinket that we take for granted, here or wherever.
I worked in a recording studio in upstate New York, up by Saratoga Springs, Stillwater, New York. In fact, it was Black Dog Studios, and I don't believe it's around anymore. For us to go anywhere to get food, well, first of all, we had no cell phone service, so you couldn't order anything.
Yeah.
You had no internet service. I mean, this place was remote, but it was a great place to go and get work done, kind of like what Caribou Ranch was in Nederlander, Colorado.
Right.
But if you wanted to get something to eat, you picked it up on your way in because it was an hour drive to go get anything outside of a gas station, that was 30, 40 minutes away. So I get it, because you are going to take breaks. You need to get something to eat, and unless it's a catered or a craft services type budget, which most of us don't have.
Right.
Yeah, you want to get away for a while. But in addition to that, the credentials of the studio are really important. We talked about just for a little bit during the break. It's when you come in here, you're spending money. You're probably spending some really hard-earned money to come in and do it right. So there's 2 things there. It's, first of all, you as the artist have your act together and make sure that you're not rehearsing during studio time. And then the other thing is make sure that the studio has their act together and they're not, power supplies aren't going down or the air conditioning's not working or whatever.
I put a lot of importance on the producer, above the studio, because a lot of times they'll be hooked up with whoever's piloting the ship. If they're looking for help, and they're reaching out to an independent producer or something, they may have a lot to do with choosing the studio because they're familiar with Austin, Texas, or Nashville, Tennessee, or Atlanta, Georgia, wherever they're recording. So these people know, hey, this studio's great. This studio, and last time I was there, not so much, whatever. But they will also. This is a biggie. So, like, let's talk about, a form of music like country, and we're in Nashville, right? So country music, kind of a big deal. A lot of it is still very much real instrument driven, very organic, acoustic guitars, banjos, mandolins, real drums, actual bass players, pianos, Wurlitzers, B3s, electric guitars. So it's not Justin Bieber pop where everything you hear is fake other than his voice. So that said, the players are critical to an incredible sounding record. If I'm talking to a young independent artist that's trying to make their first album, their first little EP, single, whatever, but they want it to sound, they want it to be great. They want it to compete with what they hear on the radio. There's no reason not to use those players that they are actually listening to on the radio. Because the way Nashville works, we're very regimented. We have a system. We work in 3-hour blocks of time. You know this, Bob.
Yeah.
And we call it a 10-2-6, right?
Right.
Everything is divided into 3-hour blocks of the day with an hour break. We also, our pay scale is very regimented and set by longtime union standards. Whether the product that's being recorded is part of the union or whether the musicians or all that's irrelevant. That is kind of like the baseline for paying a bass player, right? Or paying a drummer. So knowing that, there's no reason not to use the best because you're going to be paying pretty much a predetermined price anyway. So why use a drummer that isn't a guy that's in the studio making hits every day? These guys that do this all day, every day for a living are from another planet musically. I mean, not only are they, some of the best players in the world to even get in these hallowed doors anyway, to get this, job title of session player.
And stay here.
Yeah, but to stay here. But then it's like the monster that they were to get their foot in the door in the first place. By time they've been here a handful of years, and some of these guys have been doing this all day, every day for 10, 20, some of them even going on 30 years. It's an incredible different level of monster at that point because all of this experience and all of these songs and all these genres that they have underneath their belt, it's not like an athlete that, they're past their prime and they're done. These guys just get better and better and better and more experienced. So like when I bring a young artist in here, because I know all these guys, I'm teaming them up with the guys they hear on the radio all day, every day. So they're going to work fast, they're going to work efficient, but it's also going to be artistically brilliant,
The other thing is those guys really all know how to work well with each other.
Oh, yeah.
And really read off of each other.
Absolutely. They all see each other throughout any given week or month multiple times. Everybody is on a first. The circle that we're talking about of players that work at that level is not that big. There's, 15 guys in every chair that they could call to get that level, and they all work with each other and know each other. And that's important. That's important. It really is. Because that makes their money go further. Because if you're like, hey, my budget, Bob, I got 3 songs to do, and I'm going to buy 1 3-hour block of time at Treasure Isle Studios with these players, you're going to get those 3 songs done incredible form. You know what I mean? It's going to be amazing. Whereas if you hire guys that, a lot of people use the term session player, but that's not really what they are. It's something they do a little bit here and there on the side. And so they can't work at the efficiency level that these guys do.
No, these session players, I know when we've worked in the studio in the past, you get these really the grade A, those A level, you get those A players in the studio. They're knocking the things out in 1 or 2 takes in most cases.
Absolutely.
And then also the creative juices just grow exponentially because they may come back and say, hey, let me try this or can I try that? And, as a producer myself, if you allow enough of that freedom for these guys, they're not wasting your time. They really think they can contribute something that's just that much more.
Oh, yeah.
And once again, in 1 or 2 takes, they've got it. Yeah. I agree.
And they don't just have something that's, it's like, well, yeah, that's usable. They have something that the artist generally is walking. It's like, wow, that exceeded my, I don't know how many, like first time artists, first time working at this level anyway. I've had them crying in the control room. It's just like, oh my God, this is so unbelievable. I put on the headphones to sing this song that I wrote. And it sounds like a record the minute the drummer says 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and they're bawling, and that's amazing. It's a great feeling to be able to give that to, to provide that level of product for them, and it's just knowing the rooms and knowing the players and of course you have to technically as an engineer have your chops in the right spot too. And everybody plays their part. Everybody plays their part.
And then when you talk about the producer, they are really the captain at the helm, and they've got to make sure the ship sails smoothly.
Yeah,
I think that's important. But then we talked about something during the break, and that's the kind of the perils and the pitfalls. Being careful of the people that can promise you the moon and the stars and everything in between, because we see a lot of that. And as a business, it's real easy to fall into that trap of, hey, if you give me this much money, I can make you a star. If you give me this much money, I can get your songs in front of all the right people. It just doesn't work that way.
I mean, that's always been a problem that every music city's had, not just the music city, but, Nashville's had its share of it, the snakes. The good news is it's easier than ever to actually research that stuff. Okay, this guy as a producer or this studio or whatever is like, what track record do they have? What's the reputation in the town that they're working in? And you can see really quick that, wow, this person that says they can do this, this, and this has never had any success whatsoever. Right. I mean, the world is full of Instagram, and Facebook celebrities that have never accomplished a thing in their life in any given field. Ours is no different. I know engineers that their biggest claim to fame and success is the fact that they've generated, over 10,000 followers on Instagram. Musically, they've never done a thing. They paint this big picture of success because they have created a successful Instagram account. But, it's mostly, photos of the one time that they were in a real studio that year. What I mean?
And maybe visiting in that process.
Yeah.
And I will always say that and $4 will get you a cup of coffee.
Exactly right.
Because it really isn't going to accomplish anything else.
I mean, in a town like this, you really can be taken advantage of in any music city. But take time to look people up. You can go to All Music and credits, and there's various online sources where you can see, did that person actually play on that record?
Right.
Or, did they actually produce that track or whatever? And now, because of Instagram and Facebook and stuff, it's easy. Most music people are posting maybe, finished to links of some of the work that they've done recently because they're proud of it. And so you can click on that, that Spotify link or whatever and go, wow, that really sounds like what I'm going for. Or like, sounds like it was done in a bedroom. Maybe the Instagram page is flashy, but that is not what I'm looking for.
I think you've brought up a perfect example, and that is if you're going to work with someone, whether it's a studio or it's an engineer or it's a producer or it's a session player, is there anywhere I can go and hear your work and
yes.
know that it's your work? And I think that's important. I know as my time in the studio as a producer on the projects that I've worked on, I'll be more than glad to send people
Absolutely.
Either links or MP3 files of the music that I've done everything from metal to country and jazz and everything in between. Being able to have that music that they can listen to, and it may be great music, but maybe it just doesn't fit in their wheelhouse. It may not be what they're looking for, and that's no offense either, but it's finding that right person,
the right fit. Yeah, exactly. There's so much of a difference from genre to genre in in what the musicians do, hiring the right musicians for that genre. Engineering wise, I know, as that being my specialty or whatever, like the way I'm using the equipment, it varies a lot. I've been recently mixing some jazz stuff out of New York while at the same time working on an aggressive, like Southern rock type band and producing a couple pop tracks. My approach on those three things are very, very different. You know what I mean?
You almost have to, not literally, but figuratively, step out of the room and take a breath and come back in, because you have to put on a whole new set of ears, to do that.
And there's not a lot of guys do that either. And that doesn't mean they're not incredible at what they do, but like they're very, very focused on one genre. Like that's the only thing they work in. So if that's not the genre you do, maybe they're not the right guy. But if you do that genre, they may be the perfect fit. I'm a little bit of a chameleon because that's just my nature. I love so many forms of music that I'm not going to let myself get pigeonholed, because I would go nuts working on nothing but rock or nothing but country or nothing but jazz.
Yeah.
Doing them, a handful of each of them throughout the year is just really what makes me happy, personally.
The other thing is when you go into the studio, know your budget.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're going to have surprises. Sessions may run longer, or, I've been in situations where the vocalist just couldn't hit it out of the ballpark the first few times.
Yeah.
I've been in sessions where, we've spent 18 months on vocals because the vocalist was never happy.
And how about the singer, how about the artist that does their own background vocals, and then you hear them, you're like, oh my God, they don't know harmony from...
Right.
from melody. I mean, it's like, so you just all of a sudden you're bringing in heavyweights, like at $150 a song to do the background vocals. And if they're recording 5 songs, you just do the math. It just keeps getting more and more expensive,
Here's a sidebar real quick, because this actually came up on a Facebook post yesterday that I was reading. In your mind, what's worse, someone who's sharp or someone who's flat?
Sharp goes right through me. Like the hairs on the back of my neck will stand up flat. It's
all fixable.
Yeah,
in the
it's all
studio.
fixable. That's true. But the sharp is just, it's me personally. It's harder to listen to.
It's easier, but it's also better to work with an artist, with a vocalist who's pretty much spot on and is not pitchy and can work in the studio, because it makes everybody's job go faster. And I got to tell you, autotune, I don't care how good you are, if you have to use autotune, it's going to reflect in the final product just a little bit, I think.
Depending on how far you have to take it, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I know I would probably get some blowback on this one, but I'm a firm believer in specialists, like people that are really great at 1 or 2 or 3 things, and like they focus on that, and they know when to take their hands off and hire somebody that's better than them at other tasks, where it's not, some of these producers that we both probably know, I would say be a little bit careful of the one-man show kind of thing. The guy that, hey, I'm going to help you pick your songs or find your songs or help you write your songs. I'm going to play, on it. I'm going to play on it. I'm going to program it. I'm going to play real, guitars or whatever. I'm going to record and engineer everything. I'm going to mix it and I'm going to master it. And then I'm going to teach you how to do your social media, and I'm going to then I'm going to represent you to publishers and all. You can't be great at all of those things.
I agree.
You can be, maybe really good at a few of them, and then just maybe adequate to to less than adequate at some of them. I think the greatest products come from people that are unegotistical enough to do what they do really, really well and turn loose of the rest of it and put it in the hands of other people that they know and are completely comfortable saying are better than them. As a result, you're getting every step of the process, from the songwriting to the guy that played the drums to the guy that, recorded it, mixed it, mastered it. Everybody is at the top of their game. You're going to, if you hear a Jason Aldean record, for example, that's, since he came up, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're not talking about a one-man show. You're talking about a machine of men that each one of them are at the top of their game. And that's why they get the results that they do. If you got one guy sitting in his spare bedroom doing everything, well, of course, he can only be great at so much.
It's going to sound just a certain way, and it's not going to go any farther.
That's something that you see more and more of now, because the technology is capable of, letting us be a one-man show. I think knowing when to hire somebody that's better than you is a sign of a great producer, more than it is, not.
We're going to take another break, and when we come back, a couple more questions, and then I want to get into In the Mix, which is a video series, I guess, that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
In the studio with Joe Carrell here at Treasure Isle Recorders, and you're listening to this edition of...
This is Bob Eckman of Country Music Fantasy Camp, and you're listening to my favorite music business podcast out there with Bob Bender on the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Wow, I just joined the Music Starts Here community. This is a truly hidden gem for anyone in the music business. Whether you live in Nashville or anywhere else in the world, Music Starts Here is like a GPS for your music career. This is the place to be if you want to get advice and direction from some seriously talented musical people who have been where you want to go. Music news, events, and a great big community with resources for artists, songwriters, musicians, studio and tech. along with music business advice from pros in the industry, all on one site? Make sure you get your free profile now. Go to www.musicstartshere.org. That's musicstartshere.org.
Hi, this is Vinny Rebus, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag.com. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio here at Treasure Isle Recorders, Joe Carrell sitting across the microphone from me. Interesting question that came up during the break. Which comes first, the studio or the producer and or engineer?
You know, that is a good question because I've seen it happen both ways, and it can happen both ways successfully. There are some commercial rooms that we both know and respect that have, you know, like what we'll call a, quote, custom division, where part of their deal is they'll take artists from around the country and team them up with some studio musicians and you know, help them finish their product. But personally, I would say I'm a fan. I would more direct somebody to finding a producer first, because then you're getting somebody that you know is a good fit for you sonically and stylistically. Like, you can hear their finished work, and that is what I want.
But taking it to the next step, listening to their music and going, okay, I like that.
Yeah.
But then, do you like that producer? Can you get along with them? Because
that's true.
You're going to be in the studio for a really long
a lot
period.
of hours.
Yeah, a lot of hours.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that personalities are there.
That's true. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking somebody to coffee or lunch or whatever and trying to get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Or even talking to some artists that have worked with them in the past. It's so easy nowadays because of the technology we have. You can look and see that okay, well, that, you know, there's this 25-year-old female artist in Nashville this guy worked with, or this lady worked with, and I'll just message them on Instagram. Say, hey, I'm thinking about having, you know, whoever, you know, working with them. You know, did you have great experiences? Because most people will tell you if they did or didn't.
Yeah.
They may go, yeah, that record turned out great, but wow, I won't go that route again.
Yeah.
You know, it was like pulling teeth to get my master back, you know, get it finished in time, almost missed my deadlines, or the guy treated me like a dog while we were cutting the vocals. I mean, you know, people will be honest about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think if you can find a producer that has the sound that you like, if they're reputable in the community that they're in,
yeah,
they're going to know multiple studios that will fit the bill. So like if you're like from Houston, right, or whatever, and these are the 5 days that I can be in town, well, they'll know 3 different studios they can call. If one of them's booked, they just call a different one. They know which studios will sonically fit the bill for what they're trying to do. Same with the players. You know, it's like, oh gosh, I know you really love the drummer that played on, you know, that Taylor Swift record or whatever, but he's not available that week. But I know an incredible guy that, you know, plays on the Zach Brown records or whatever, you know, that will, you know, I can get for you. I think the right producer can just handle everything because they know everybody and they know every, you know.
Being very even-tempered and not getting stressed out. I worked on a project some years ago where both the engineer and the artist both had a meltdown at the same time.
Oh, boy.
And, you know, that doesn't happen too often, but it was a very emotional situation, and neither one of them was having a very good day.
Yeah.
And we just had to stop. I mean, that was just it. Okay, we're going to take a break, and you know, when we come back, everybody has to, you know, be grown-ups and, you know, get your A game back on, because it's all costing money when we do that.
Right.
With regards to the studio and the producer, it really is finding both that fit really well.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding? We've talked a little bit about finding the studio, how do you go about finding that producer? Is there a list, or you make phone calls, or how do you go about and find, if I'm brand new and coming in, because I'm a producer, how do you get people to find you?
If you have some records that you really love on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, which, by the way, use Apple Music, not Spotify, because...
Right. Yes.
Just a little side note there. I think it's pretty... Yeah, I mean, you can message that artist or look back in their history, or credits aren't as easy to find as they used to be.
It's not like IMDb in the movie and television world. You go to the IMDb database, and if you've been on a project, you can either credit yourself or they'll credit you. But in the music business, we don't have the album liner notes like we used to have.
No, and so much of the products that's being released today, I work on a lot of label stuff, but I also work on a crap ton of independent stuff, and that stuff doesn't get generated on your all credits or all music or whatever, all those different websites you can go to. If I go there and look at myself, first of all, because of my last name, it's horrible trying to find the albums I've worked on, because my last name can be spelled so many different ways. But so I have credits in like 4 different spellings, but it's always labels. And there's, the independent stuff is almost never there. And, honestly, I'm more proud of the independent stuff, oftentimes anyway, than I am anything else I've ever done. It'll never be on my Grammy nomination list. It'll never have a radio #1 or off of it, but I'm very, very proud of it. It can be a little bit of a battle, but I think because of Instagram, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff, I think it's possible. It's just it's harder than it used to be.
Do your research.
Yeah, it's harder to find who produced that and who did this and all that kind of stuff than it used to be because of the lack of credits. However, once you do find that guy, it's easier than ever to get a hold of him. Go 30 years back, how was a guy going to contact Don Was or whatever? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, now that I know he produced the Aerosmith record, how in the world am I ever going to reach him, you know? And now it's mostly just messaging on Instagram. Hey, want to make some money?
Yeah. Let's talk about In the Mix.
Yeah.
I've been following you on Facebook and seeing these video vignettes that are popping up.
Right.
And it's a really cool thing. And you're doing that in Studio A.
Most of them are right across the hall. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about In the Mix.
There's this company named Warm Audio. They're out of Austin, Texas, just outside of Austin, Texas, Georgetown, Liberty Hill. I can't think of the name of where their current headquarters is. And what they do is they make recreations of classic products. So I had done, an interview or two on the web. This goes back years ago that were, heavily viewed. So, and because of some records I'd worked on, I had a nice Facebook following. It was like maxed out at 5,000 followers or whatever. So, and a lot of them were guys that they followed me because of the music thing, so they wanted my opinions or feedback or whatever. So I bought a Warm Audio product, a compressor, on a whim one day, thinking that it probably wasn't going to do what I wanted it to do, because it was so much less expensive than the $2,000 component that it copied. I didn't expect it to be very good, because we were always taught you get what you pay for. And, let's face it, 98% of the time that's true. But I bought it and to give it a try, used it side by side with the original. At that time, I was down at Soundstage, and they had multiple versions of the original unit there that I could try side by side. And it did the same thing and sounded amazing. So I put it on Facebook. I was like, gosh, some of you guys are probably like me and thinking, I'd love to know if that piece is worth my purchase. Is it really as good as the original? And so it's like, I'm proud to report it is. The next thing I know, I have a follower is like, hey, I'm really good friends with the president and founder of that company. You guys should hook up, because they're a new company and they're looking for, it'd be great to have somebody that's got any kind of reputation to champion their product or whatever. And so him and I spoke, and, I bought some units, on some other pieces, and I just kind of unofficially became almost like a spokesperson for the company. So we've got a great relationship, to the point where they even fly me out to Anaheim to NAMM, to hang out at their booth and speak to people, and in a way that they can't, because I'm them, right? I'm an actual average Joe end user.
You're in the trenches.
Yeah. I'm not a manufacturer, and I'm not employed by the company, so I don't have to say anything that I don't want to. Anyway, one thing led to another, and we were at Summer NAMM last year, so almost exactly a year ago. And I was talking to their marketing person. We was having dinner, and we were just kind of laughing about how much terrible information there is on the internet now. You got everybody that went to Full Sail or whatever, but had no career, trying to make a career out of teaching on the internet. Like these people have, a lot of them have never really done anything of any, you know what I mean? And some of them didn't even do anything other than they're in their bedroom trying to teach, but they're teaching something they don't know.
Yeah, a lot of classroom time under their belt, but very little time, if any, in the studio working it. Yeah.
So you see some really information that you're just like, man, I just really wish that wasn't out there. That person needs to be learning, not teaching. So we were like, well, why don't we try to combat that a little bit, because like we can use that as a way to show what our products are capable of, but at the same time teaching them how to use them to the maximum, get the best results out of it. So if you did buy our WA87 microphone or WA73 preamp, how to use it the most effectively to get the quality results that all these people are looking for. So we're like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it, and it's kind of, evolved into what you see now, and what I think we're probably around 28 or 30 episodes in. Right now, we've covered everything from drum tuning to setting preamp levels on recording microphones or vocals. And
even did an episode on miking a Leslie.
Yeah,
speaker.
B3, absolutely. Because all that stuff matters. A lot of these young engineers, they've not encountered some of this stuff yet. Like us here in Nashville or whatever, we get everything thrown at us. I've recorded, bagpipes, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? So it's like they don't know necessarily the best spots to put the microphone on various sources or see other options. Maybe they were taught this one thing. It's like they do this one thing. And so sometimes you open their mind into trying something new that they like better. But I've really enjoyed it because I've got this teaching part of me that just really likes. I've always loved having interns. When I'm in commercial spaces, I always have interns come in and observe the tracking day. Let them come in and sit right beside me while I'm mixing and talk while I'm doing it. Like I love teaching and trying to get some of these young people to hopefully, like if they like when I was at Omni, for example, like I had a room there for 6 months. When they served their internship and left, I hope they left better and more knowledgeable. Does that make any sense? Because they got to spend time, with somebody that has been there and done that, and maybe they can apply it when they get home and make better records wherever they're going. So really, that's the theme of the show, just helping people that haven't had. Listen, the reason I'm the equality level or whatever of engineer that I am is because of the opportunities that I've had. It's not because I'm anything grand or special on my own. It's because I worked under Bobby Bradley for 3 years. And then when I moved down here, I got to, all the rooms that I've sat in with people that are better than me is what created me. And same thing, with the session players, we was talking about how much better they get after they've been here, sitting and playing beside musicians that are better than them, and the opportunities that they are given is what makes them even better. So, I just want to share some of the opportunities and knowledge that I've accumulated with some of these other guys, that many of which will never get to have those opportunities. They're not going to get to sit in a Nashville control room and chord Lonnie Wilson on drums or Brent Mason on guitar and get feedback from them about the sounds that they're getting that day. Go to lunch with these guys, and the stories that they tell, and locking that stuff away in your head is like when they're telling horror stories about an engineer and you're like, okay, note to self, don't do that. And when they're talking about how good another engineer is, like, hey, it was great because he did this or he did that, it's like, add that to my vault now, and I want to be better. I want to be the guy that they're at lunch talking about. You're right.
Yeah.
So I can share those experiences through this show with younger guys, and a lot of people that watch it are even much older than me. They're they're
never
learning.
Too old. You're never too old to learn.
Absolutely not. And I've been blessed with so many opportunities to learn from people that are just so good, and I still sometimes pinch myself to think about, man, I was in the room with that guy. It's like, wow, I've got to record so many legend studio musicians and stuff. So this is a way of sharing that experience free of charge, absolutely free of charge, with people from all over the world, and just give that information away for free. And it makes me feel good.
Now, is it just on Facebook, or how?
It's on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
It's on Warm Audio pages. So if you go to Warm Audio's YouTube, you'll have to find the playlist that says In the Mix. If you go to Warm Audio's social media like Facebook, it'll be in there. Now, I share all that stuff on my own social media as well. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll be able to find it all. But it's free of charge, and it's just there to help you try to get better at what you do. And you know what? If you watch it and you don't learn anything from it, just don't watch anymore. Yeah. If I can't teach you anything, go learn somewhere else.
Kind of like this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people find you?
Well, on Instagram, I'm at In the Mix with Joe Carrell. And Carrell we've already discussed that. It's very weird. Carrell. And then on Facebook, same thing, In the Mix with Joe Carrell. That's the name of the program.
Same spelling, last name.
Same spelling,
Yeah.
Carrell.
It's not a different Joe Carrell.
And I don't even remember my Twitter handle. I think maybe it's Mojo Mix, MOJOEMIX. I should have looked that up before you got here, Bob. I didn't do my homework. Yeah, I'm on all those platforms. I try to post pretty regularly, even like two little tips and stuff that don't make the program, because you can only put so much. We try to make them reasonably, a lot of them anyway, reasonably short. It's sometimes hard to do.
Yeah.
To make an episode 8 minutes long that's very effective at teaching anything.
I agree.
But anyway, hopefully there's something up there that everybody that's interested in engineering and producing anyway will. Mixing, we'll get something out of, I hope.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
Don't forget to check out our affiliates, including Lab Canna, fine hemp products since 2014. Click on their link on our website for more information and how to order their product line. If you're interested in getting your music into film or television, click on the Sync Songwriter link on our website. Absolutely the best way to get your songs listened to by top TV and film music supervisors. This is how you can get your songs quickly licensed for your favorite TV shows and movies. Click on our website link to get a free digital copy of Larry Butler's new rulebook for singers and songwriters, 101 Ways to Help Improve Your Chances of Success. Also, check out our other affiliate, Music Starts Here. You can find them at musicstartshere.org. Probably the best one-stop shop for the singer, songwriter, or aspiring musician who's relocating to Nashville or wants to. Last but not least, shameless plug for this podcast. Become a YouTube subscriber by going to the Business Side of Music page. You can hear all of our released episodes there. Also, check out our website at businesssideofmusic.com. Follow us on Facebook at the Business Side of Music Podcast and on Twitter at BizSideOfMusic.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Traci Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.
There's antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium, and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and gold, protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, and boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium, and strontium, and silicon, and silver, and samarium, and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. There's holmium and helium and hafnium and erbium and phosphorus and francium and fluorine and terbium and manganese and mercurium, molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium and scandium and cerium and cesium and lead, praseodymium and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium and tantalum, technetium, titanium, tellurium and cadmium and calcium and chromium and curium. There's sulfur, californium, and fermium, berkelium, and also mendelevium, einsteinium, nobelium, and argon, krypton, neon, radon, xenon, zinc, and rhodium, and chlorine, carbon, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard. And there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered.